Hello and welcome to our webinar. This is the first video in a webinar series that we will be hosting regarding the 3DEXPERIENCE Cloud Services tools for SOLIDWORKS. To get started with this webinar series, let's talk about what the 3DEXPERIENCE Cloud Services tools are. You may have actually heard of these tools as they are now being included in new licenses of SOLIDWORKS and renewals of SOLIDWORKS licenses. So let's talk about what these tools are and what type of functionality you get from this. The Cloud Services tools provides your company with its own private tenant or specific private space on the 3DEXPERIENCE platform. The 3DEXPERIENCE platform is Dassault Systèmes' cloud-based system. Most of what we're going to be utilizing is going to be through a web browser. The Cloud Services tools give you access to some specific base roles of the 3DEXPERIENCE platform. These include the 3D Swimmer role, Industry Innovator role, and Collaborative Designer for SOLIDWORKS role. Those are the three primary roles included with these cloud services. Notice on my screenshot there is a fourth role listed, the Platform Manager role. That is specific to administrators. Only the administrator of your company platform will see that specific role. The 3D Swimmer really provides access to the 3DEXPERIENCE platform as well as 3D Play for viewing, 3D Drive, a lot of base and fundamental applications. The Industry Innovator role provides the data management applications available to you. And the Collaborative Designer for SOLIDWORKS allows you the ability to download an add-in to connect your company's 3DEXPERIENCE tenant into your SOLIDWORKS CAD software. These tools are designed for SOLIDWORKS users, and that integration is very tight and well done at this point. In terms of functions, there's three main functions that I want to discuss with you as far as what you get with these cloud tools, these roles, and the applications they contain. The first one might seem obvious, but it is cloud storage. We're very familiar with this concept of cloud storage. Perhaps you use a different cloud storage platform at your company already. This could be Dropbox, SharePoint, or OneDrive. Where the 3DEXPERIENCE platform and these cloud services tools provide you a massive benefit is in its ability to automatically manage SOLIDWORKS CAD file references. That is unique to this platform. Dropbox, SharePoint, OneDrive, they simply were not designed to manage those types of complex references. Yes, we can store SOLIDWORKS files. We can store any other file type. This is not going to be a limitation of the platform. Also thinking about cloud storage, you may be asking yourself, how much space will we get with our cloud services tools? The answer to that is 25 gigabytes per invited user. I am being specific about the invited user. The reason why is if you have 4 users and all 4 of those users actively utilize the licenses, they're invited to your company tenant, each user gets 25 gigabytes. That is cumulative, so that means the entire tenant has 100 gigabytes of space. As more people get added, more space gets added as well. One other major benefit of the cloud services tools is that you can upload files directly from SOLIDWORKS CAD into this cloud environment. That's partially how the system automatically manages the SOLIDWORKS references. The second point I want to discuss is collaboration. The cloud services tools come with a variety of collaboration tools in the form of feeds, communities, and notifications. These allow you to collaborate with your coworker on any device. What we're also going to see is the share and markup functionality. This can be used internal or external, but it is an ideal way to share designs with customers or vendors outside of your organization. The share and markup functions are really what we're going to be focusing on once we complete the overview of cloud services tools. So not only can we utilize cloud storage and collaboration, you also have a series of data management applications available to you. The 3D Experience platform provides what we call out-of-the-box functionality for data management. That simply means there's not a lot of setup. There's very little, if anything, to install. The system is designed to be ready to go once you activate the platform. You will be able to lock and unlock files. This gives your entire team visibility to who is utilizing the files, and you also have the ability to utilize the revision control of documents on the platform. The cloud services tools provide what we consider lifecycle management. There is a 5-step workflow that allows you to have files be in-released, obsolete, frozen, released, and of course go through the revision process. These are all built into cloud services tools and functions. Now that we have an idea of the overview, what we get with cloud services tools, let's talk a little bit more about this specific webinar series. Today is the first webinar. We are going to continue talking about the Share and Markup tools, which is a collaboration tool. This is really your entry level into the 3D Experience platform. It's very minimal to set up. Again, if you have cloud services tools already, you can start experimenting with this and utilizing it at any time. The second webinar, we're going to discuss storing files and revising them on 3D Experience. This is going to get more in depth with the collaboration tools and revision control functions available on the platform. And then the last webinar will discuss managing and controlling documents. We're going to get a little bit deeper into the data management. We'll take a look at more formal and complex approval workflows, perhaps get into change actions, tasks, and issues. That's what's on the agenda for this webinar series. So we will start by discussing the Share and Markup tool available with these cloud services apps and tools. I have 4 main sections regarding Share and Markup that I am going to go through with you. The first is just defining what Share and Markup is. I next want to talk about the licensing emails and 3D Experience IDs. This is the very first step anybody takes when getting their 3D Experience tenant set up. From there, we're going to get a little bit more specific into how to set up Share and Markup information, and then I want to go over a couple of examples. So the last 2 points are intended to be more tutorial in style. The reason for that is I want you to be able to come back to the webinar and be able to use this to help get these tools set up on your end. But let's get through the first 2 topics first. Let's start with what is Share and Markup. We have a pretty good idea based on the overview, but let's define this a little bit more. Share and Markup is a collaboration tool that's powered by the 3D Experience platform. This will allow you to share SOLIDWORKS files to users inside or outside of your company. What's really important to know about this is if you do send a link to someone outside of your company, they do not need a license in order to access the file. That was one of the very big enhancements with the Share and Markup is now we can collaborate with anyone. The shared files are viewed in a 3D viewer inside of a web browser. I want to make sure we understand that this is going to be browser-based. Again, this is a really big benefit because we are no longer constrained to certain platforms or certain operating systems. Whoever receives the link, they can view on their phone, whether it's Android or iOS, they can view on a Mac, or if they work in Linux. We're really breaking down those limitations and making it easier to collaborate with our vendors and stakeholders. The markups can be created on these saved files through that web browser viewer, and they are saved to the shared file. Because they're saved to that shared file, both users, the recipient and the sender, can see and respond to the markups in order to get their design critique and criteria. Share and Markup utilizes 2 main applications on the 3D Experience platform. The first one is 3D Drive. 3D Drive is very similar to Dropbox in that you can upload files, generate links, and send them. What Share and Markup is going to do is help automate that process. 3D Drive is a little bit separate from your production files in that the files in 3D Drive are not going to be revisioned. They're not considered production files, but they are ideal for sharing. The 3D Play app is the 3D web-based viewer that is utilized with Share and Markup. The reason why I'm mentioning these specific apps is your company and your users can experiment with these applications outside of Share and Markup. The Share and Markup tool essentially uses them almost like a background process. With Share and Markup, the tools and the sharing is initiated directly from within the SOLIDWORKS user interface. That's what I mentioned as far as the 3D experience being more of a background process. Once we have the initial tool set up, everything really is going to be SOLIDWORKS centric. Now, if you have purchased new SOLIDWORKS seats as of July 1st, 2023, this is also when 2023 Service Pack 3 was released, all SOLIDWORKS seats have the ability to utilize and be purchased with these tools. So if you are not sure if you have access to these, please just feel free to let us know. And if you are an MLC customer, we can easily look that information up for you. So regarding the workflow of what this is going to look like from an end user perspective, we want to think about sending copies of a SOLIDWORKS file to a colleague. There's a variety of file types that we're going to utilize in order to send these files, whether it's a 3D XML, STEP, STL, IGES. These are all the built-in file types that get copied into your 3D Drive application. Now, if you haven't heard of the 3D XML, it's really just a generic file type, and it's a 3D experience specific file. A 3D Play viewer can view all of these files in a browser, so we're not going to hit any limitations there. And the majority of these are generic files. This is done to protect intellectual property. The 3D Play as a viewer shows graphical content only, so the recipient does not see your design tree when viewing the files. A link will be sent via email. There's a couple of ways we can send the email to the end user. The files will be viewed in a browser. Now the recipient will have to log in with a 3D Experience ID. Only takes a couple of minutes and it's free to create one. The files can be marked up with notes. Once saved, they will be part of that shared file in 3D Drive, and both users will be able to see that. Let's take a quick look here. So as we mentioned, we're inside of SOLIDWORKS and we're actually generating a specific email right now. We can enter in the email address, enter in a message, and this screen will automatically send an email directly to that person. You don't even have to go into your own email to send it. Once that user receives the link, they'll be able to open up the file in a web browser and they can start drawing on the file. They can add text, they can change the color. This is three-dimensional, so cross-sections, measuring, pan, zoom, and rotate will all be there. The markups can be saved in a chat environment, and the sender will see a notification and can view the marked up file side by side with the actual SOLIDWORKS file. From here, that process can be repeated, changes can be added, the link can be updated, and then more information can get passed back and forth. Now that we have an idea of what Share and Markup is going to provide us, let's start talking about how to get everything set up. The first item I want to mention are the licensing emails and 3D Experience ID. Please keep in mind that we do have a dedicated video currently on our YouTube channel that goes into the licensing emails and platform activation a little bit more in depth. However, I do want to include this information because it is the very first step of getting your cloud services tools set up. So the 3D Experience licensing email, this will go to the contact on the sales order for your new license or your renewal, unless otherwise specified to us in generating those documents. This is a very important email. This includes the direct link to your company's 3D Experience tenant. Without that link, you will not be able to access that tenant. It also contains the link to accept the end user license agreement and set up the administrator. The administrator is the first person who clicks on that link. It's important to have an idea of who the administrator is going to be. The reason I mention this is the 3D Experience platform utilizes what we call named user licensing. Instead of the license getting attached to a computer or workstation, the license gets attached to the user's 3D Experience ID and login credentials. The benefit of this is if you do get a new computer or you need to travel, you can log in on really any device and be able to access your files. Why it's important for the administrator is the first person who clicks on that will get licenses assigned to that person. The licenses get tied to that person for 30 days until they can be reassigned. So you want to make sure that you have an idea of who the administrator is going to be. It's typically a SOLIDWORKS user because they get all of these roles and licenses assigned to them with the anticipation they are going to utilize those. This gives you an example of what the licensing email is going to look like. The first section gives you the same information about the administrator. The second gives you the CLOSA, which is the end user license agreement. And the giant blue button will launch your company's 3D Experience platform. That is the link you need to bookmark inside of your web browser so you can access it going forward. If you have already created a 3D Experience ID, you can simply use that to log in. If you have Access DSX Client, My SolidWorks, or the SolidWorks forums, you will already have a 3D Experience ID. If you do not, you can create one at any time. It is free to create one. It only takes a couple of minutes. Even the person receiving the link is going to need to create a 3D Experience ID. It serves as verification and allows them to access the web browser. Once we have our licensing email located, we've activated our platform, we have our administrator, now we can talk about the share and markup setup information. There's a couple of settings that are very easy to set, and it's easy to get this tool up and running. So we're going to see the platform and a couple of settings inside of SolidWorks. As we go into our platform, we're going to be met with a welcome screen. The first item we're seeing is a welcome tour. This provides some great setup information and navigational tips on the platform. Feel free to go through the welcome tour. It is worth going through when first activating your tenant. For this webinar, I'm going to close that window. Again, you will see the welcome to the 3D Experience platform. They do provide you with a great amount of getting started criteria. I'm going to go into my dashboards and cockpits list to start accessing some of the settings for share and markup. As an admin, I have access to the members management and platform management dashboards. If I go into the members management dashboard, this provides the space where as an admin, I can invite additional users into my 3D Experience platform. If your company has more than one license, feel free to invite as many members as you have licenses. This also provides me with an overview of the roles, how they're being utilized, how many are being utilized, as well as the expiration dates of my licenses. Once any users have been added, I'm going to go into my platform management dashboard where I have additional settings on a variety of different topics. I'm going to click on the Content tab. Under my Drives Control Center, I'm going to click on Share with External. I need to turn on the Share Content setting found here, which allows the members of my tenant to share content with people outside of my company via link. If this is not turned on, you really just won't have the ability to access share and markup. It'll be grayed out. Once turned on, I recommend you also turn on allowing external users to view and comment on those shared files. This allows you to take full advantage of the share and markup functionality. This is a global setting this will apply to everyone on your tenant. The next couple of items are going to need to be done per user. I'm going to access my Compass where I will see all of my roles for my cloud services tools and all of my applications. If I go into my 3D swimmer role, I will see all of the specific applications that are contained within my 3D swimmer role. First thing that we will see is there is 3D Drive, which we know Share and Markup is going to utilize, and then also 3D Play. These can be utilized on their own without the Share and Markup functions that we're setting up. This is where they are located. The 3D Drive needs to be set up on each user's computer. If I look towards the bottom screen, my screen itself says Configure 3D Experience Drive for Windows. If you've never set this up, it will say Install 3D Experience Drive for Windows. You will want to go through the installation and configuration process. It's very quick, but there are some components that it's going to set up within that process. One of those is going to be the location on your computer to serve as a local cache where these files are going to be shared to. Once this is set up, installed, and configured, we can go into our task tray in our Windows taskbar, and there is a 3D Experience Drive located here. It's going to be the gray icon. If I right-click on that button, I will have the ability to start or stop synchronizations and go into preferences. The preferences are where you can change, set, or update your synchronization folder. You can also choose which tenants you want to be synchronized or not. This is good to know if you are a contract worker and perhaps you have access to multiple tenants. You may only have one. If so, I recommend that you stay synchronized with your company's tenant. Once 3D Drive has been set up on the user's computers, I recommend that each user also install the Collaborative Designer add-in for SOLIDWORKS. This installation is a little bit longer. It's a little bit just more involved because the file is bigger. It is an actual add-in for SOLIDWORKS. So if I click on the Design with SOLIDWORKS, there's a little down arrow next to that icon. The platform will detect if anything needs to be installed. On my particular computer, I do already have this add-in installed, which is why I'm seeing the 3D Experience version, the hotfix number, and then I have two icons after that. Feel free to hover over those icons. A tooltip will be provided for you. You will see an icon to perform an installation if this is the first time you've ever done that. You will want to launch the installation. It will launch a wizard that will walk you through the steps. You can perform a hotfix update if you've installed this previously. On my screen, you are seeing an uninstallation button, and the arrow itself allows you to create a desktop shortcut. When launching the desktop shortcut, all of SOLIDWORKS will get launched. The main difference there is launching through this shortcut will automatically link into this specific 3D Experience tenant. Once those items have been configured, downloaded, installed as necessary, we can go into SOLIDWORKS. There are a couple of settings in here to also be aware of when setting up Share and Markup. First place I'm going to go is my SOLIDWORKS add-ins. Because we just installed the Collaborative Designer add-in for SOLIDWORKS, please make sure that the 3D Experience add-in is turned on. That's what's going to access the add-in in the task pane on the right, give you access to your My Session app, and allow you to see notifications on the markups on your shared files. Once turned on, you can verify connectivity to your 3D Experience platform. We can see the My Session app and My Sandbox space up at the top. Also, as of the Service Pack 3 release, if you right-click on any tab in your Command Manager, you will have an option to turn on a Lifecycle and Collaboration tab. This tab is specific to the 3D Experience platform. It allows tighter integration into the SOLIDWORKS system in addition to the add-in. I have a couple things grayed out because this file is currently not saved to the platform, but we can refresh my session as needed. But what we're really focusing on is the share a file. When I click on the down arrow under the share a file, I will see those generic file types that we had seen previously in my screenshots. I can choose what file type I want to share, and once I click on the share a file button itself, that will start the process of sending the emails, generating the links for my recipient. Now that we have all of our settings set up, everything's installed and configured, our add-ins are turned on, we are ready to start taking a look at a couple of examples on how to utilize share and markup and what that's going to look like from our perspective. So that's going to be the last section, is going through a couple of examples. Our first example, we're going to do a full workflow of share and markup. We're going to start from initiating the share, seeing the second computer with the email, and then going back and forth with a couple of comments and markup. So we're going to see the entire process here. Going into SOLIDWORKS, I have my part file opened, and this is really ready to go to start sharing. So I'm going to choose my file extension. I'm going to share this as a step AP214 file, and I can click on share a file. This is actually converting the file into a step file at this point in time, and now we have a window where we can choose how we want the link to be sent. The item at the top to copy a link will simply be a copy and paste of the link. You can copy and paste that into the body of an email and send it to whoever you want. This is a little bit less secure than the second method we're going to see, because anybody with a 3DEXPERIENCE ID could then access the file in the link. So it's not quite as secure as the second method. We're going to enable guest comment so they can comment in the markups, and then I'm going to choose to restrict the access to specific users. In doing this, I am prompted to enter an email address of the recipient. Going through this method, only the person with this email address and 3DEXPERIENCE login associated with that email address will be able to view the file. I can then add a message to the body of the email and start the share. As I start sharing the file, the step file is going to be fully loaded into 3D Drive. Once this is loaded, I will see there is a shared with external folder inside of my 3D Drive, and my step file has already been placed there. Also, the email has already been sent to the recipient as well. That's actually what we're seeing here on the recipient screen. They see the 3DEXPERIENCE platform email, and when they click on that, we see an example of what this email is going to look like. We see who the user was, what the file is, the body of the email that would have been included, and then there is a button to click here to see more. That blue hyperlink is going to automatically launch the 3D Drive and 3D Play applications so we can start loading the geometry and viewing the file in 3D. It takes a couple of moments to load the geometry in the browser, but once this does load, we'll be able to see the same part file, and we can start pan, zooming, rotating inside of three-dimensional space in our browser. Towards the bottom of our 3D Play app, we have an action bar. There's two tabs. There's a View tab and a Tools tab. In the View tab, I may choose to show all edges and turn off perspective. As a SOLIDWORKS user, I like to see all of my edges. As I am interrogating this part, I may decide that the way the logo is applied might not be necessary in this case. Perhaps there's a different method that the logo gets applied, but this method is creating a lot of tiny faces and small edges that maybe are not necessary for production. So I can go into my tools, choose my pencil icon, where I can start marking up, drawing circles around certain items that might be an issue. So I'm going to circle both of the logos. I can also add text directly into my 3D Play application. So I'm going to add text to add some context to these circles just by saying, let's remove the logos. Once I've added my markups and my text, I can go down into my action bar, and the cloud with the plus sign will share this as a comment. This will share the markup and allow us to add even more information. This panel on the right-hand side serves as a type of chat. So again, I'm going to reiterate that maybe the logos need to be removed, and I can then send this information back to the sender of the file. They will receive a notification. These notifications are live and active. They can be clicked on. So once that notification has been activated, we see once again the My Session app is loading the 3D drive file, and it's loading 3D Play. The geometry will load side by side with my SOLIDWORKS file. This is really very user-friendly because we'll be able to see the markups and the actual SOLIDWORKS model side by side. So I'm seeing that the person I'm collaborating with really wants us to remove the logos. Maybe there's a different method they'll be applied, so we'll go ahead and do this. I can zoom in, compare my SOLIDWORKS and markup file, and suppress the logo. Once I've made this type of design change, I want to inform the person I'm collaborating with of the change. I'm going to click Share a File a second time. This now gives me a set of options. I can either update the existing step file with this step file with changes, or I could choose to simply upload as a brand new step file. I'm going to choose Update Existing because it's going to maintain my markups. If you choose to load this as a new file, you're not going to see the markup from the original file. So there is a little bit of a difference there. I will still see one file. I can preview what this file looks like after the update. This can be a very simple verification that the step file did get updated, so we will then know that our person we're collaborating with will see the most current up-to-date file. And everything looks good. I'm not seeing the logos there. Even if I turn on my edges, everything looks like my SOLIDWORKS model. So I can add my own markup directly from the My Session app. I'm going to choose a blue color just so the color is a little bit different, and I'm going to circle where the logo used to be and just reiterate that the logo has been removed. So I'm adding my own markup directly from within SOLIDWORKS. Once completed, I will go ahead and hit send. Now, something to be aware of here is the recipient of the file is not necessarily going to receive a notification in this direction. Part of that is because they're not actually added to your company's 3DEXPERIENCE tenant, but they can refresh their browser, which I just did, or they can re-access the same link and the updated information will be there. Here we're seeing both of the markups, the original markup and the markup from the designer who just suppressed and removed the logos. So I have access to this information going back and forth. From here, I could continue with this workflow. If I found anything else incorrect in the model here or something that I saw should be changed, I could add my own markup. And again, I could send that back to the recipient and we could continue this workflow as many times as needed. So this completes the first example, which is a full workflow. We saw how we can initiate the share, do the markups in the web browser and in SOLIDWORKS, and update those files. The second example I want to talk about is specific to drawing files. Now, parts and assemblies are going to behave similar to what we just saw in example 1, but drawing files allow us to export to some different file types such as PDFs and DWGs, which is really what I want to show you. DXF files as well. So inside of SOLIDWORKS, I have a drawing open. And if I choose my file extensions, I can choose PDFs, DXFs, DWGs, or PNGs as an output. I'm going to leave this as a PDF as the file type I want to share. When I click to share a file, the PDF export prompts me for which drawing sheets I want to include. I think this is a great addition because I can choose to not show something that may have proprietary data on it. Once the PDF has been created, it does automatically open inside of your default application. Again, this is a nice productivity enhancement because it does allow you to preview the file before you finish copying the link and sending it. Same thing that we saw previously. I'm going to send an email to my coworker, the person I'm collaborating with, and add my message. So again, this is going to be restricted to just this particular person's email address. The PDF is going to get uploaded into 3D Drive, and we'll be able to see that listed. So the email containing the PDF, again, has already been sent automatically to the recipient. They can access the email, again, see all the same information, and then click here to see more. One reason why I wanted to also discuss the PDF is because we are opening the PDF still inside of 3D Play, not necessarily inside of Adobe or whatever your default viewer is. And that's because we want to be able to create our own markups and have it go back to the sender. So I can zoom in on the PDF and perhaps I see some odd red lines on this particular component that might look weird, or maybe we're not sure why those red extra lines are there. I'll go ahead and circle it and just add a comment that we need to evaluate the red lines on this section. Once completed, we will send that markup back to the originator. They will get their notification, and again, they will be able to open this up. This is going to open in the My Session application, similar to what we saw in example 1, this time just working with a PDF. Again, I wanted to show this workflow with the PDF because it may not be intuitive to use that type of file with 3D Play. But again, we can set this up, do a side-by-side comparison of the originating part, and we can see, yeah, that might have some weird edges to it. And we could continue going back and forth. One more example here that I want to show you is the DXF. When I choose to share a DXF, I'm going to get some unique screens. One is about scaling, but the other is about layers and how we want those layers to be exported, whether it's all visible or not. This can control how a DXF or a DWG gets exported and saved. Now, I'm not going to go through the process here of sharing. It's going to be similar to the other examples that we've seen, but this will get loaded into 3D Drive. If you decide to load a file into 3D Drive and not share it, the little down arrow on the right will allow you to delete it out of that space. So that concludes the example 2, which was specific to drawing files. Now, example 3 is something I think is an interesting idea, which is utilizing share and markup with PDM standard. Something to keep in mind here is this is by no means a replacement for the Web 2 client with PDM Professional. They're not even close to being the same. The Web 2 client is still by far superior as far as managing versions and revisions inside of that PDM environment. However, I do get frequent questions about web viewers for PDM standard, and using share and markup could be a very simple solution to allow you to collaborate with people outside of PDM standard without setting up a lot of infrastructure, such as VPNs, making sure they have licenses, getting the client installed. So it's something I think you could consider to enhance your PDM standard environment. So let's take a look at what this example will look like. We're going to go ahead and start inside of PDM. I have my file already saved here that I'm going to check out so that I can open it directly in SOLIDWORKS. Once inside of SOLIDWORKS, how we use share and markup is going to be the same. It doesn't necessarily matter where the file originated. So I'm going to share a step file, and I'm going to click on my share a file. We've seen this a couple of times, so we know that we're going to send this to a specific person and can add the body of an email. Once we have completed the sharing portion, this is again going to get uploaded the same way that we've seen in the previous examples. The person who we are sharing this with will have the opportunity to review that step file and be able to mark it up and send it back. We'll receive a notification like we normally have. Again, this is all through 3DEXPERIENCE, and similar to what we've seen before, we can still go ahead and view it inside of the My Session application. Now, as this is loading, I noticed that I didn't have my PDM add-in turned on, so I'll turn it on now. No reason why it can't be on. It's not going to affect anything. We're going to see the markup, and we have the ability to suppress that logo. Now, the actual SOLIDWORKS file is being saved in PDM, so I can go into my PDM tab. Now that I've made a change, let's go ahead and check that change into PDM. So we are actually saving our production files in PDM at this point, and I can put in a comment that the customer recommended we remove the logo feature or suppress the logo feature. So this is still saving in PDM like we're used to doing. There's nothing really different there. Once this has been changed, again, we can simply reshare the file through 3DEXPERIENCE to the person we're collaborating with, and that will be updated as well. So in those actions, we updated both PDM and the link in 3DEXPERIENCE for the person we're collaborating with. Everything that we're working on with this file at this point is actually being captured. So it's not going to have any effect on your PDM environment. So we did go through that example a little bit quickly, but I do think it's worth taking a look at. There are, of course, some pitfalls here in that the markups are not being saved in PDM. That is something PDM Standard can do through the eDrawings viewer. However, we're not really focusing on collaborating internally, we're focusing on collaborating externally. So again, you can see that it's minimal setup, it's very fast and simple to get going, and there's no infrastructure needed for that person we're collaborating with to need a VPN or a PDM license or an installation. They don't need access to your production environment at all in order to start collaborating with them. So in that way, I do think it can be a very valuable tool for PDM Standard. So we've covered quite a bit of content here as far as what is share and markup, the licensing, the share and markup setup information, and of course the different examples. As we wind up our first webinar for share and markup, I want to thank you for your time and attention today, but please keep an eye out for the second webinar in this series, which is going to be much more 3DEXPERIENCE centric. We'll talk about storing and revising files and using that built-in data management. And then, of course, we will have our third and last webinar where we get a little bit more into formal data management. So if you have any lingering questions about what you saw here, please put it in the chat. We'll be happy to answer any questions you have, and thank you very much for your time and attendance today.